the gold. It could be too far. No, he's kicking. Oh, what a catch!
Puts a spicy forehand out in front of Naomi Morcilla.
Wu for the win. Team Canada. Darren Wu!
Santos with the layout grab.
Oh, that fantastic grab. The claws of Chaffer.
Canada just became the world champions.
You're listening to the Huckin Eh podcast, your coast-to-coast guide for all things Canadian Ultimate. Once again, solo here, one of your co-hosts, Theo from Toronto, Ontario, but actually recording in Cincinnati, Ohio. So for those that don't know, maybe living under a rock, there was a Worlds tournament that happened in the beautiful city of Cincinnati, Ohio, the great Midwest of the United States. And I'm still here at a retreat of sorts. I'm enjoying that, and will eventually be making my way by the time this airs to a couple of baseball stadiums in the United States. And very excited for that little baseball pilgrimage. And I was unable to do that during COVID. So really excited to go check out some stadiums. Already hit the Reds game, and excited to do that. So once again, I'm flying here solo. Danie is, by the time this airs, definitely in Poland. It'll be exciting to see what Danie does over there, which I'll explain in the main event. So 2 main events today. Going to talk CUC Masters. Believe it or not, that's coming up this weekend. And then U20s as well. So lots of stuff to talk about. Let's hit the news right now, though.
We now have breaking news.
So like I said, if you've been living under a rock, you would have known that, there was the World Ultimate Club Championships. Please check out all the daily content. There's actually been some really good downloads of people checking it out. So I recorded basically every day except for, I think, day 6, where I just combined day 6 and 7 together, or the last 2 days together, like the last full day plus the finals day together. So please check that out, including also the weather podcast, which was me recording with fellow commentators from the UK, Hannah Pendlebury, and from Ireland, Liam Grant. So that was really fun. You should check that out. But the one thing I didn't talk about was Spirit. So I want to talk about Spirit quickly. Not here to debate if Spirit is good or not. I think Danie and I have made our feelings kind of clear on a previous podcast on Spirit, which you can check out with Khalif Al-Salam, David Hochhalter, and Allison Fisher. You can go check in the podcast archives for that. But we want to start with highlighting a team, Furious George, coming in 7th, I believe. And you can take a look at that on your own in the WIFDIF results page. So Furious came in 7th in Spirit, which is really amazing. And I think the reason why it's amazing to me is because of the reputation that still kind of upholds itself today with Vancouver Ultimate, Canadian Ultimate specifically. It kind of came up in one of the broadcasts as well that I did. And it's just, I think it's just something that people still talk about. But Furious came in 7th, the top team in all of North America. So the next best team, I'm just looking now, is pretty far down. That's Rhino Slam. Many spots below them, like almost like more than 10 spots lower. So Furious is the top North American team performing in Spirit, finishing with a Spirit score of 11.55, which is really exciting for them considering some of the stuff we heard from 2012. Their results may be skewed by a score that was given to them of 16 by Sockeye, but I still think they only had 2 scores of 9. Otherwise, it was 10s and above, and a couple Mooncatchers gave them 13, Chalk and Buzz Bullets gave them 12. So, really good stuff from Furious. I know, and speaking with Danie about this, some people were talking about, I guess, the 2012 thing on the sidelines, and Danie was just like, that's a long time ago. And unfortunately, that reputation still kind of holds itself a little bit, and it is frustrating that does occur because, times have changed, like I said. So, there's a new guard, it's a new reputation, I think, being built. And, I think it's time to maybe let the past be the past and we learn from it, but I don't think we should hold it against this current Furious George iteration. To follow up with that, Goat and Mephisto both above 10. So 10 is kind of the baseline for Spirit, as you probably know. 5 categories that you score out of. And so, yeah, it's really exciting for them to also finish above 10. In women's, Traffic, Fusion, Iris, Salty, all above 10. Stella finishes right below 10 with 9.89 with their lowest score with fouls and body contact. Whereas Sixers, not good in terms of this result. They finished second last with a score of 9.20. So they actually finished second last, and their lowest score being fouls and body contact with 1.7, which puts them kind of in that lower third or more for that. Taking a look at their scores, they received a 7 from Brute Squad in one of their final games. They received a 10 from Brute Squad in the first encounter, but in the second encounter, Brute Squad gave them a 1 for fouls and a 0 for attitude. So that's kind of interesting. And just remember with Spirit scores, we've talked about how teams that you play against, if they tend to give out higher Spirit scores, it can skew your own and vice versa. So just remember that. But overall, I think there is, in terms of how North American teams play, I do think it's a little bit more physical. Even just like how people position themselves in a stack with their arms kind of like out and like, putting their arm on someone, but not like pushing them, but kind of just feeling where they are. That's pretty common, I feel like, but definitely not as common over in other parts of the world. So in mixed, PBHG finishes first with 11.20. Union is 10.9. Lab 10.2. So they all finish above the 10 threshold. And then Red Flag, another Canadian team that finishes second last here with a score much lower than Sixers with 8.8. They get a 1.6 in fouls and body contact. Received a 5 from the Monkeys from Monkeys, and then they get a 7 from Noise and Mixtape. So Noise and Mixtape are obviously North American teams. Monkeys is a European team. So that's interesting that they got some low scores from, those are high intense games with Noise and Mixtape being the final. So it's kind of interesting. I've spoken to them a little bit about it and knowing, there's certain players potentially that can, I'm not going to say be solely responsible for that score because I think it's overall across the team board. But I think they obviously have things to work on in regards to that, but also having to work against a bias potentially against them is also hard. So I think it's sort of this like really difficult thing to navigate where you kind of maybe have to be over the top spirited in some ways to like warrant a good score because you're from like Vancouver or if you're from Canada. So, I'm not excusing some of the calls they made, and I called it on the broadcast that there were some calls that I think Red Flag would like to have back. But I also think in the game that I commentated, which was their semifinal against Putty out of Finland, that Putty also was having some issues with some bad calls and the way they were doing things as well. So, I think there's things to learn for the people that, claim Canada has bad spirit and for the Canadians as well. So I think it's kind of a twofold thing there. So moving on for news, we're going to talk about AUDL. AUDL regular season over. And unfortunately, all 3 Canadian teams did not make it. I had some hopes that perhaps one Canadian team would make it, to be honest, based on how some of the teams started out. But that is not to be the case. So Ottawa loses their last 2 games. They finished 2-10. Montreal and Toronto finished 4-8. I just want to highlight some stats leaders before we move on to the main event here. So we're going to start over with assists. So Ryan Pollard of the Toronto Rush finishes tied for 16th with 42 assists. Keep in mind, he only played 9 games. Pretty impressive. James Lewis finishes 4th in goals with 50. David Cholich of the Ottawa Outlaws finishes 12th in goals with 44. Phil Turner lighted up for Toronto. You got to get excited about that because, he did a lot with blocks last year, but with the Canada Cup, it was easy to kind of dismiss that. But now you see, there's more to the story here because he finishes first in the league in blocks, which is really exciting for Phil. And Charles Asselan, who was tearing it up at WUCC with Lab, tore it up with blocks for the Royale, first-year player for them, finishes 7th in the league in blocks with 16. Luke Comire, also, I've talked about him before in the AUDL recap. He had a breakout year for himself in terms of just the way he was handling. He finishes 4th in the league in completions with 588. He's 3rd in throwing yards with 5,064 and 5th in total yards with 6,434. So super exciting for him. I know that he's been a handler that's sort of, been, I think, built, or the team is building around. And this handler core is going to be a thing that they build around, of course, for the future. So Luke is definitely part of that. Jacob Brissett for the Royale is 5th with 4,380 throwing yards. James Lewis finishes 3rd with 3,560 receiving yards. Alec Arsenault out of the Ottawa Outlaws finishes 8th with 3,203 receiving yards. And Jeff Bevan for the Outlaws finishes 17th in the league in 5,458 yards. So to conclude their seasons, Toronto had a chance to make a move, as I talked about before, but unfortunately fell to the Phoenix. Montreal definitely skidded to the finish line, and not sure if some of those players were focusing a bit more on club with Worlds coming around and things like that, and focusing on getting into the USAU series and cracking US Nationals, which I still think is a very good possibility for them. So they kind of fizzled out. And then Ottawa, they beat Boston to start, and then kind of things a little bit going downhill for them. I think all three teams have potential, but it's going to be who buys into kind of competing in the AUDL and sort of how potentially the other teams in the East regress, or they might just progress. So really excited for the future of all three teams. That's your AUDL recap. We're going to hit the main event after this quick break, where I'm going to talk CUC Masters Preview and then talk U20s as well. This episode is brought to you by Be Ultimate Apparel. Based out of Vancouver, BC, Be Ultimate is climate neutral certified and designs products that are built to perform. I personally love my 2 Be Ultimate Sun hoodies, and I rock them wherever I go. If you want to learn more about Be Ultimate, start your custom team order, or check out any of their ready-for-purchase collection, you can head over to beultimate.ca.
This is Dave from Alberta Flatball Club, and you're listening to the Huckin Eh podcast, your coast-to-coast guide for all things Canadian Ultimate.
So, like I said in the intro, if you didn't know, Masters is coming up for CUC, which is exciting. Medals being handed out for all 3 divisions. As is such with usually a non-Worlds year, you get uneven numbers, or not enough for 12 teams, 16, and all that. So we'll start with the most uneven division, which is open with only 5 teams. So you have Still from essentially Ottawa with some players from other areas, Ensemble out of Montreal, Viper out of Kitchener-Waterloo, Quacks out of Quebec City, and Grandsome, which is out of Montreal, which is basically Ensom's Grand Masters team. So one of my predictions is, from what I know about Viper, having practiced against them, I don't know if they've ever won a game at Nationals. And if someone from Viper can, I talked to one person, but if someone else can confirm or deconfirm that statement, that'd be great. But I predict that they will get their first win this year at Nationals. That's my prediction, 1. But I am going to predict the semis is going to be Still versus Viper, who's going to finish 4th, and then Ensom versus Quacks. And then I'm going to predict Still is going to run over the competition up to Ensom. Ensom will be their toughest matchup. I think that score will be maybe 15-10. Still just has so much firepower. They're also adding Cam Harris, which is insane with the roster they already have. That was at Worlds, so they're going to be fire. And I'm going to predict Quacks. I've heard some good things about Quacks. Was told to keep an eye out for them. I think the 3-4-5 could go kind of any way. Viper might strike hot. They've had some players that turned Masters age recently, and so they might be able to strike gold with that, or strike bronze, I should say. And then Ensom Grand Masters got the experience. So I think 3-4-5 will be very tight. But I'm going to pick Quacks over Viper for 3rd. In women's, you got to even 8 teams. You got to love that. The next 2 divisions got even amount of teams. And that makes the resident fact checker of the Huckin Eh podcast very happy. You get to not have to deal with random schedules like you do with Open. So that's pretty exciting. Gonna go through first the rankings, the pools, and then I'll break it down after that. So in Pool A, we have Stello, the first ranked team, Aguada out of Gatineau region, the 4 seed, 2nd seed in their pool, Quasar out of Quebec City, and then Psycho Cybernetics, women's Masters team out of North Bay. Like, you got to get fired up about that because that's not something you see every day. And it's pretty cool that there is a team from North Bay playing in this tournament. I don't remember, and once again, someone can fact check this. I don't honestly remember the last time a team from North Bay played in the Women's Masters. I don't think ever, to be quite frank. Once again, I could be proven wrong. So if I am wrong, please tell me. That'd be good to know. But I'm more than certain that that's not the case. I know North Bay has sent an Open team before because I played against them in NADS out of North Bay, an Open team. But I don't remember ever seeing a women's Masters team. So that's actually really cool. And just wanted to take an opportunity to kind of, say good job for bringing a team. I only see 16 members on your roster. It's a 2-day tournament. It's not a 3-day, so I think you can get away with it. But good luck to you. You're the 8th seed overall. Pool B, Macrame out of Montreal, Solstice out of Ottawa, then Lore out of Toronto, and then Queen Peas out of kind of Kitchener, Waterloo, Cambridge area. So, start off with some predictions, I guess we'll do here. I'm going to predict that the semis are going to go Stello versus Queen Peas. So I'm actually going to predict Queen Peas. They added Tanya Gonzalez, who's a player for them, has played for Capitals in the past. Not that that's only going to be the only reason, but I think that adds a little more firepower for them. I think that they're going to take second in their pools, which means they're going to play Stello. And then Macrame is going to play Aguada, who's going to finish second in Pool A. And then Macrame is going to finish first in Pool B. Macrame's got some players I recognize, including Adria Quigley, who's played with Salty before and played World Masters. Yannick St. Cyr, I believe, played for Lab as well. So I'm going to see them playing against Stello in the final. I do predict Stello winning. And I'm going to say that score is going to be 15-12. We're going to say 15-12 on that score. We're going to actually predict score lines here. Next is mixed division. The most unknown division, I think, and pretty exciting because I think there's multiple teams that can win. I'm going to kind of go a little bit chalky, but I think that there's some opportunities here. So looking at the pools, I'm going to go through the pools first, like I did for women's, tell you where they're from, and then we'll go into the format because the format's a little interesting as well. So 4 pools of 3, we got POC, which is Epoch, out of the province of Quebec. Believe they're also Montreal. But obviously they did really well at World Masters. So definitely a team to look out for. I don't know. I would have to cross-reference how many players from that roster are on this roster, but there's still some names I recognize from the World's roster. No Mbe Vogel, Nasser Mbe Vogel, but still some great players on this roster. So they're going to be, watch out for them, of course. I may or may not be predicting them to win. So Rogue Hippo, you got some, you add a little flavor with some teams not from like Ontario. That's sweet. So they're from Edmonton, and then Pushing Daisies out of Ottawa rounds of that pool. The next pool is Cold out of Quebec City. You may have recognized that team because Danie played for them. And then Trail Mix, they label themselves out of Ontario. I think they have some players from like Mississauga, Toronto, kind of that area. And then Flow out of Toronto, another team. In Pool C, you have Notorious KWG, aka they're from the KW area. Love the name. You got Dinner at 4 from Bowmanville, kind of Durham region. Ex-Backdraft players. And then you have Firefly out of Winnipeg, which we've seen at many Masters tournaments. Last pool is Forever Young out of Vancouver. This is the 4-5 matchup. They will take on Elder out of Ottawa. Elder, a team that did pretty well at mixed regionals, to be honest, and they played some teams that are a lot younger than them and did pretty well. So pretty well as in the middle of the pack, kind of middle to lower, but not last. So that's cool. And then there's like 2 pushing daisies here. I'm not sure which one's like kind of the A, but pushing more daisies, probably the B. I'm not sure. But there's pushing daisies as well. Some of these, there were some standings that were potted and like there was a live draw with that, but these are the scenes that were ended up. So you play in pool play, right? You play 2 games. Cool. Then there's like a crossover on Saturday. So at 3:30, I'm looking here. I just had to calculate it with 2400 time. You're going to get crossovers with like the second in your pool with the third. So if you win that, you're in the quarterfinals. If you lose that, you're out. So see you later. You're into the 9 to 12. Okay. If you win your pool, you play a crossover against another team that won their pool. So, for example, if you're Poc and you win your pool, you play the winner of Pool C, which could be Notorious KWG. Let's just say that based on seedings. And those teams would play, and then the winner would get kind of the 1 seed, and the loser would still be in the quarterfinals, but they'd fall into like the kind of like fourth, like kind of the middle of the seeds. You would have a harder matchup potentially in quarters. But basically, if you win your pool, you get like 2. You're not out. If you lose that crossover, it's kind of more for seed. So we'll see what happens there. So in terms of what I predict for semis, I'm going to go semis. I know there's 12 teams, but I'm going to go semis here. So I'm going to go, let's see here. I'm going to go Poc versus Dinner at 4. So I'm actually predicting Dinner at 4 to win a big matchup over Forever Young in quarters. So Dinner at 4 is going to win their crossover. They're going to play Forever Young, and then they're going to beat them. I just think that their experience with Backdraft is going to help them. They're going to finish second in Pool C. They would play, let's see here, the 3rd seed of Pool A, and then they would play the loser of Game 5, which I'm looking here, would be Cold versus Forever Young, which I predict Forever Young to lose. So that's what would happen. I think Dinner at 4 is going to make the semis. Don't let me down, Dinner at 4. Forever Young, use that as fuel. I'm going to predict Cold versus Notorious KWG, 2 pool winners to meet in semis. Cold's going to win. Epoc's going to win, or Poc. And then I'm going to predict Poc to win. I think they're the stronger of the 2 teams from the province of Quebec. But I think it's actually going to be pretty close. So I'm actually going to predict 15-13. I'm increasing the closeness of these games. So I predict that it's going to be 15-13 for Poc, otherwise known as Epoch, out of Montreal. They're going to take the trophy. And that's your preview. You can tune into some streams. There will be some games live streamed, and yours truly may or may not be on the mic. So you should check that out. I believe it'll be on the Ultimate Canada page as well, YouTube. But there'll be some games streamed. I'll kind of announce the schedule. I'm not sure if it's public yet, but I think eventually it will be. But yeah, we're going to be streaming 3 games on day 1. And then there will be, so I'm just looking here. So we'll be streaming Cold versus Trail Mix, Solstice versus Lore, and then the 1A versus 1C crossover, which I predict is going to be Poc versus KWG. And then on Sunday, we'll stream a couple open games. So 2E versus 3E. Just going to double check if that's a semifinal. But that would be exciting. Then we're going to stream the open final right after that. So I don't know how. Yeah, well, interested to see how good the open final is going to be. I think it's going to be. It'll be spicy. I think. I think Still does walk away with it, but be interested to see what happens. And then moving forward here, I'm just looking. Yeah, that is a semifinal. Sorry, 2E versus 3E, and then we'll be streaming the women's final and then the mixed final. So there you go. You can check all that out on the live streams. I believe I'm Ultimate is going to be doing the streaming coverage, so it'll be either on that page or the Ultimate Canada page. Keep your eyes out on the Huckin Eh Instagram to kind of know some details about that. All right, U20 preview. It actually starts August 6th, so right around the corner. 7-day long tournament. Schedule not out yet by the time, at least that I'm recording. But probably by the time this airs, there will be a schedule. So right now I'm just going to talk about teams. We'll start girls or women's division. 10 teams. In the pool for Canada, there's, in the order of how they're seeded, France, Czech Republic, Great Britain, and Poland. To be honest, I haven't seen these teams, so I actually don't know what they're going to look like. France is the one that's seeded right below us. I think Canada is going to easily take this pool, to be quite frank, and is going to just have to take on the big bad US in a great final. So that's where I think we end up. For some countries, from what I heard about Great Britain specifically, they don't invest in youth in the same way that other countries do. I don't know intimately how Great Britain works, but that seems to be the case, at least from what I've heard from people that know it. And so I think that's important to remember as well, that if you don't have a robust youth scene, that can be very difficult. So yeah, I predict Canada to get to the final, and from there, you never know. Obviously, I hope that they win. In terms of players to watch, I wanted to kind of highlight. Of course, I could highlight every single player. They all deserve to be there for sure. You made Team Canada, so you deserve to be there. But in speaking with one of the coaches, obviously you might be knowing who I'm talking about. Just want to give some players to look out for. So not everyone's going to get highlighted, but it happens. Okay, so Alicia Zhang out of Vancouver, super high game IQ, reads the disc well, and is a big cutter for them. Nina Elwar out of Quebec plays for Iris as well. Her brother plays for Mephisto and Elliott. I think he's a big fan of the pod, so a little shout out there. Nina has huge hucks and vision. Then you got Arabella Brudney who's played for Fusion. Super big layouts and defensive intensity. And then, we'll throw a little love to Toronto. Tiffany Zhang, who played for Sixers, quarterbacks the D-line. And Tiffany actually played some big minutes for Sixers in the games that I was able to commentate. So hopefully didn't get hurt and is able to play U20s at the highest level. Looking at the boys or open division, 12 teams, USA first seed, of course, and then Canada is the second seed. And going to look at the pool here for you. Canada's pool is going to be Italy, New Zealand, Belgium, Czech Republic, and Poland, with that Italy game being pretty big. You may remember this from a few years ago, 2018. Final between Italy and the U.S., and Italy was actually up on the U.S. Pretty big deal at the time. Italy unable to close it out, unfortunately, but I think their youth scenes continue to grow. So I think that game is going to be really big. I think it'll be their biggest test, but I do think they'll also get to the final. And then we'll see from there. Some players to watch out for in that team, Neo DeBrew. Saw him play for Red Flags. He's fast, but he can also get up. Got some big ups. Big time cutter for them, and getting some experience in the WUCC final will be helpful. Koji Suzuki, quick handler, will run a lot of things for them. But the tricky part will be running offense specifically, I should say. Kind of a quarterback there, but was told he may be injured. Don't want to speak for him, but things happen at WUCC. So we'll see how much he gets in. I think he'll try to play, of course. And then we have Oscar Stonehouse, who, if you follow the AUDL, has been, making some waves. Probably going to be all rookie team member. He's going to be a big time cutter for them. And then Martin Gallant out of the Ottawa Outlaws, super explosive and dynamic, and someone else to keep an eye out on. Of course, like I said, we could name all the players, but that's who we're going to highlight right now. So I think they play 2 games a day. Like I said, I don't have the schedule right now, so I can't actually tell you this information. But it's going to be interesting because it's in U20s, it's just some of these players obviously haven't reached their peak yet. They're like 19 years old, 18 years old, 17 years old. So, win can play a factor. jitters and nerves can play a factor. So it's kind of cool that way. I don't want to say it's wide open, but it's kind of cool that there's these opportunities to play these teams. And I think traditionally it can often be Canada, U.S. only, but Colombia has been involved and some other teams as well. So it'll be good to kind of see. I believe some games will be streamed. Like I said, don't have the schedule, but I think Alti TV is going to be involved. I don't know if Alti World's sending a team over. So once this airs, you might be able to know more information. So yeah, that kind of wraps up the main events here. Thank you for tuning in. I know it's kind of a shorter episode, audio only, I believe, is what it's going to be. So wish Danie a safe trip in Poland. Obviously there was a little bit of the Rona spreading around WUCC. So wishing all the teams that were there safe recovery if they did get it. That wraps up the episode. Stay tuned for the subscriber only. If you want to know about my experience at WUCC commentating, I think it'd be kind of cool just to share a little bit about how that was. And so if you're a subscriber, you can tune in. If you're not, you should subscribe because it allows us to produce content like this and along with the live streams and things like that. So thanks for tuning in. We'll obviously talk about Masters and U20 in the next episode. Start to get you ready for CUC Adult, which I'll be there for. So you can come say hi, and I'll do some predictions for all divisions, not just women and mixed. I'll do predictions for open too. So follow us on Instagram, Huckin_A. Hit us up on Twitter or email hucking@altiworld.com, and we'll see you next time.
Hey, this is Linda Kudo, observer for Ultimate Canada and USA Ultimate, and World Flying Disc Federation Game Advisor. You're listening to the Huckin Eh podcast, your coast-to-coast guide for all things Canadian Ultimate.